Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Coming at you live from the new and official PMT studio. I still have like 100 boxes behind me, so still a big work in progress. I was moving like about 80 moving boxes yesterday, and of course we picked an apartment on the 4th floor and there's no elevator, so I'm usually a very sedentary guy, but we've been getting in the steps this week. We've been getting our work in, still unpacking everything, but we got like the base set up. I still only have one screen right over there. I want to do like a 4-stream setup or 4-screen setup once everything's more moved in, especially with like the streams where like you need to have like chat in one place, OBS in another. Like I need more screen space. That's number one. But also, I didn't even realize this. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween. I'm used to being in a corporate office where like you always have holiday events for this type of stuff to keep me in the loop, but I completely forgot it was Halloween. What am I doing Friday night 5 p.m. but on Halloween, looking at mayoral race markets, looking at mention markets today. But we got a lot to cover today. Halloween, Foster, how are you doing? The first thing I'll say that I want to cover, because obviously I made a joke in my post today that we're returning to streaming, saying, that did I miss anything yesterday? Did I miss anything yesterday? That was the big joke. Obviously, we did miss some things yesterday in the mention market world. There were some big events yesterday. Oh, you're waiting for trick-or-treaters? Thankfully, when you're on the 4th floor of a Brooklyn apartment, nobody tries to trick-or-treat. I don't know how they'd even get in here. Plus, my whole complex is locked. But, of course, I still have this piece of garbage mic because I thought I had packed my mic that, like, goes over and I have a cord for it, but I guess I didn't. So either I got to ship that again from California or just buy a new one. I'll probably just buy a new one. I mean, I'm spending so much money moving. You always underestimate these costs. But look, there was some news yesterday. I'm sure you guys tuned into Coinbase's earnings. All right. A lot of people are. Mike is iconic. Yeah, maybe I'll keep the rainbow mic. But a lot of people are talking about Coinbase earnings yesterday. You're hearing people say, is this the death of liquidity in mention markets? Are we cooked? Are mention markets now past their prime? Was that the best it was ever going to get? What do you think I'm going to say to that, huh? You think I'm just going to lay down and just say, you know what, guys? I guess mention markets are dead. That's my livelihood right there, okay? Mention markets are not dead, okay? Mention markets are still in their golden age, okay? At the end of the day, people are asking what to think of it. You know what? You can have different interpretations of what happened on the Coinbase earnings calls, but overall, I'm bullish, It's an iconic event, iconic lore. I think we look a few weeks from now, it'll be a thing of the past. Only Brian Armstrong will be the guy to do it, But, I mean, look at what this stream's covering, right? We're starting right here. So I'm showing on my screen, guys. How could I not talk about this? Okay, I just moved to New York. So I'm now an invested party in this. We got the New York City mayoral election. Still waiting on Bill Ackman to come on the stream. I think he'll respond. You just got to give him time. Just make sure everyone looking at my tweet today asking him to come on the stream, make sure you're quote tweeting that daily. Keep tagging him. Long after the race, too. I think he'll come on. I'm bullish. But look, we got this race, guys. I mean, this is This is officially happening, I believe, on the 4th is the final day. Obviously, early voting has been going on, but I think the final day we should know is November 4th, which is next Tuesday. I mean, I talked about how I'm playing this. I'm pretty loaded on Mamdani. But he's up to 94. Okay, am I going to buy Mamdani at 94? Probably not. I have 5K bonded at 87. So should I have done more? Probably. But he came down to 85, 87 a few days ago. I posted about it. We loaded up. I really don't understand why he came down. Maybe it was people like interpreting early voting data. But, I mean, at this point, I think he's pretty clearly a shoo-in to be the next mayor. There is, like, you do have to realize being a mayoral race, anything can happen. I mean, I'd imagine the polling for this race is probably a little better than obviously a lot of the other like cities in the country. Obviously, it's New York City. But, you know, it's not like they're polling for presidential races. And obviously, even in presidential races, pollings can kind of go crazy. So, you know, he's back up to 93. I still think there's a decent chance you'll see him drop in the next couple of days if something happens. I mean, I don't think Sliwa's going to drop out or anything. And I mean, it's a good point to even look at that. Like, could Sliwa ever drop out at this point? It's down to 3 to 4%. AL railed me so bad. Yeah, me too. I lost $400. I don't really know if it was plus EV. I just wanted to sweat someone for Worlds, so I threw $400 on him. No regrets. I thought it was fun, but you really can't ever fade T1 at Worlds. But look, Sliwa's down to 4% to drop out. I mean, if Sliwa doesn't drop out, I just don't see much of a world where Mamdani doesn't win this thing, but I do see a world where as new information comes out, people are constantly interpreting it with like the early voting numbers. Maybe we'll see something that'll cause this to swing closer to Cuomo and you can continue to like pick up shares at 85. Like, do I think this will stay at 94 the rest of the race? No. There's usually a good chance that this will come down to like 80. I mean, maybe you'd even see it get to 70. I don't know, but something to watch, obviously. But look, am I an expert on these? You got a ton of Mamdani at 86. Yeah, that was honestly a great call. Speaking of bonding, because I have been talking about bonding a lot, you can see I'm back to like 18K in cash. Because I had like 10K on the Fed that was holding up a ton of my money. I threw 10K at 25 bips cut, mostly for the content. I thought that was kind of funny. But there's no world they weren't going to cut 25 bips. But I am topping off my portfolio with another 20K. I'm going to deposit it. I actually already put it in my Coinbase account, but then Coinbase, of course, locks up your funds for like 3 days. So I am going to be adding 20K. I am going to be looking to bond more, and I'll be playing with all the quote-unquote house money. Obviously, there's no house on Kalshi, but we'll be using all our profits. Quick little update, sneak preview for performance on the week. We're up little over 2K this week, but if we zoom out for the month, we're up a little over 11K, which, let's pause for a second. Trading is not necessarily my number one goal. Like, I'm pretty focused on content, doing all these streams, doing all these clips, editing, I think that's pretty remarkable that we're squeezing out 11K with all this stuff. But you know what? I'm not going to toot my own horn. I still got to step it up. So, like I said, I'm throwing on 20K to add on to the portfolio, or like 18K to be exact. I'm just going to basically make it where this 58K that I have will be my total portfolio. So I'll be playing with all my profit. That way, when I hit 100K in my balance, it'll be 100K profit. I think it'll make it more fun. Because I think overall, mentions are great. I'm going to keep doing that, obviously. But, you're somewhat limited by liquidity sometimes. So what I need to do is get into more bonds. And, an example of that is like Mamdani, that I think 87, I think his fair value is probably like 95, 96. Obviously, I'm kind of pulling that out from nowhere. But another bond play that I kind of did was this Alpha Arena thing. I got in here at about 80 cents. This was super undervalued. I don't know what there was some market maker that was, just setting limit orders at crazy prices. So I got filled for 4K for both of these. It's going to be DeepSeek or Qwen, probably DeepSeek, but got filled here at 80 cents combined price, both of these. I mean, I think that's 96% going to resolve yes. We're still holding Bad Bunny. What's interesting is, and let me actually move this so you guys can see more of it. I feel like, yeah, I'll do that. I think that's better. What's interesting for Bad Bunny of all the bonds I have right now is this is actually still currently trading like around 90 cents. So when I get that additional 20K in my portfolio or 18K, this could be a good place to like park funds. Right now, I've just been sizing like 5K shares into all these bonds, but I probably should size bigger. Start doing like 10K shares in some of these that are like really high confidence. But, the overall idea, like I have a lot of money in like stocks and regular investment portfolios, way more than what I have in prediction markets. So the idea is to just, move more funds into prediction markets when you can get like pretty great returns. Because obviously I'm all in index funds in my regular portfolio, and it's just going to be like a 10% return. So if you can easily beat 10% annualized in prediction markets at extremely low risks. Obviously, there's risk involved with anything. Be careful. But like parking my money and stuff like this. Like someone, I had a post I wrote the other day. I'll pull up about bonding. So I was talking about this here. Like, I don't know if any of you bother to read it, whatever. But look, my overall thesis on prediction markets is that the most mispriced things that you'll find are things that are a 99% probability, but will still trade in the range of 90, maybe up to 95 cents. Because, there's going to be long shot bias where everybody wants, 100x or whatever. So you can get in at things at 90 to 95 when the fair value is 99. And I mean, just think about that conceptually. Like if you were getting into something at 90 that should be 99, while it might sound like, oh, that's just a 9-cent price difference, it's actually an unbelievable price difference, right? Because you're basically, you should be giving someone should be getting 1,000 to 1 odds, but they're only getting 100 to 1. So if you think about like the vig, quote unquote, that you're charging whoever's taking the other side, it's kind of unbelievable. So that's my big thesis. So I want to add more funds, obviously, and start having like maybe 40 grand, 50 grand just on bonds that are earning me like 5%, 10% monthly, and that's just going to compound. And then with a little bit of liquid cash, maybe 20K liquid, I can, start to size up a little more in mention markets. The last 5 weeks, we've profited about, 2,500-ish every week. So I think like right around, 13K or so, a little more than that, the last 5 weeks. So we need to add bonds on top of that because, again, I've had like so much liquid cash available. And then with the money I have, that's not bonded. It's like just trading mentions because I think those are extremely high ROI, right? Mentions are going to be much higher volatility, but much higher ROI. I think with personally like the edges that I find in mentions. Last piece I'll talk about that before diving into markets is just, for those of you that are new to prediction markets, a big thing I just want to hammer home, because like if you guys watch my posts or look at my posts, I'm a very sarcastic guy. Like, what did I post the other day? Or this was just yesterday. I guess it's gonna be lower down, but I'm a very sarcastic guy. I like messing around. Like, this is an example of like one or, you'll hear people refer to things as locks, or like, at least that's more in like the sports betting world. Yeah, 4th and an 8th yard. I think I'm more funny than I really am, but I did love this post. I thought it was a lot of fun. I definitely had a couple White Claws as I was reacting to some of the comments, and just, yeah, Jared always an inch yes better. But look, the big truth about prediction markets and any endeavors like this, right, is it's going to come with risk and volatility. So even though, just a reminder, like, for those of you watching that, want to profit long term and want to get alpha, like, I'll make posts like this joking about like, oh, this is a lock, or, I mean, this one was just funny, but right, like, why am I taking this position, I guess, is what I'm getting to, right? Am I taking inch no because I think in this specific game there's a 0% chance they're going to say inch no? No, that's not why I'm trading this, okay? That would be insane. Like, if that was possible. I mean, maybe stuff like that happens occasionally, but I'm trading inch no at 29% because I think the fair value of inch no should be something like, I mean, I'm not going to use the exact actual fair value, but maybe 50% or 45% or 40%, right? If the probability of inch not being said is 40%, and I can buy no shares below that, so in this case 29%, so that's like a 25% haircut, it's incredible value. So in the long run, you're going to profit. In the short term, you're going to have volatility. So you'll have winning days, you'll have winning weeks, you'll have losing days, losing weeks. Brings me to my next thing. I went on the roll up this week. That was a ton of fun, with them. Here's an example. I lost $2,700 on that roll up episode when I gave my FOMC picks. I posted this, and I think a lot of people in the comments were like, "What did you learn from this? What did you? Oh my gosh, you you messed up badly." But you're kind of missing the point, right? Like, what I'm trying to convey to you is, in this type of endeavor, you're going to win, you're going to lose. If you have an edge in the long run, you're going to profit, but you're going to experience volatility because nothing's guaranteed. You got to think about this stuff probabilistically. So, we went on Powell for the FOMC speech. I stand by my plays. I think we had an edge there. Maybe it was thin value. Like, the plays I entered, I got in at about 66, 67%. I think the fair value for them was closer to 80%, but we lost on both of them. So that can happen sometimes, right? We lost $2,700. So I just want to say this because I guess I mean, I don't view myself as like an incredible trader, right? But like, for those of you that, follow my plays or, think I'm a great trader, right? It's like everyone loses. So just realize that like volatility risk is part of the game. But also, like, if you're consistently losing over a long period of time, obviously you need to like start thinking about differences to your strategy because maybe you don't have an edge long run. But look, we lost $2,700. I'm going on a tangent. At the FOMC speech, did we give up? No, we locked in. We then played earnings calls the next day. I actually posted all my earnings plays. We went 17 for 18 on these earnings plays. So we absolutely like swept the earnings calls. But what's crazy is I should have made like going 17 for 18, I should have made like 10 grand. I only made 1,500, and it was because I was limited by liquidity. I stupidly placed all my limit orders like a few days before these earnings calls, and then I had them set to expire at the end of the day. I didn't just leave them up till I pulled them down. So, then I had to relist them. So like I didn't have open orders for a long period of time. So I only made $1,500 on these earnings, even though I went 17 for 18, which is terrible. And it's a big mistake on my part. I should have, sized appropriately and like had orders up for a longer period of time. But whatever. We bounced back, made 1,500 there. Played earnings as well. yesterday. We came out okay. I actually went 50-50 on these earnings, which you may be like, oh, that's terrible. But like, look at most of my plays. I had a lot of these that were like 25% strikes, right? So I'm saying a long shot's undervalued. So I'm saying 25% should really be like 35 or 40%. So we went 50-50, but because of how my positions were sized, maybe there's a little bit of a luck element there too in terms of like what orders got filled versus didn't. I came out ahead like $200 on this earnings call. And then yesterday we played Inch No. I actually wanted to size up to this to like 3,000 shares, but I couldn't resist getting this tweet out. So I posted the tweet while I still had open orders. Then the price pumped all the way to like 40 cents. So I didn't get to fill the 3K, but whatever, we'll take it. We had 2,400 shares, so I made about $1,600 here. So all in all, we're up like 2K on the week, which, you know, we'll take it. Obviously, always great to be up. Happy with that, but we got to lock in for next week. So what I'll get into next is there's no real mentions happening today. There is, you know, there are mentions for like a late night show today. What will Marjorie Taylor Greene say during Real Time with Bill Maher? This one happens at 10 p.m. Like, I don't know. This one is just, to me, like, I love this mention market, but for me, with my portfolio and like what I'm trying to get down, I feel like there's a really big time investment here, because I'd have to pull these transcripts manually. Like, I wouldn't have them in like my tool. So, and the liquidity is probably not gonna be as deep here. So, I mean, me personally, I'm not gonna invest the time into this one. But I love the mention market. Obviously, I always love new mentions. So there's not a lot of mentions going on, but we do have the MLB announcer mention. I haven't really data mined this one. We did play a lot of walk-off in the first MLB game back when it was priced to 50 cents. So something to be gleaned there is like whenever they add a new category of mention markets, so this MLB one, they started adding this just a week ago for game one. No one has ever like priced an MLB announcer mention market before that, okay? So the first game you'll see for the MLB during this is going to be, what do you do in your daily life to keep mental sanity to deal with all this volatility? That's a good question. I mean, any endeavor like this, like, it can be crazy to deal with volatility. I guess what I will say, son, is I am, like, I worked for 5 years as like CPA. Like, as much as I sometimes will joke about cost of stuff and everything, like, I'm very financially stable. Like, I'm not like a millionaire, but like, you know, losing $2,700 that day, like, kind of is a drop in the bucket for me. And like, but I say that in two, like, not only that, but also like I've traded on like prediction markets, for example, for a year and a half, but I've also been in similar endeavors like poker, like horse racing, which are very similar things where you have a lot of volatility, for a very long time. So I've built up a bit of a tolerance to it, to where, like, you know, when I look at my balance, it's almost a number on a screen rather than like dollar amounts. And it's funny because I had Gaten Dugas, who I love, by the way. I posted an interview he did the other day. You guys should check that out. But he talked about this when I had him on 2 months ago, because he's dealing with even larger sizes than me. You know, he'll have 100K spread on all these positions. But it does kind of start to become numbers on the screen after a while, to where, you know, it's both a good and bad thing. I think if you're profitable over a long period of time, it's a very good thing to view these as numbers on the screen, because I think the number one mistake top traders in like prediction markets and other endeavors do is they size too small. Obviously, sometimes you're limited by liquidity to build up positions, but I think a lot of the time, sharp traders will size way too small. Um, Last thing I'll say on dealing with that is just going back to experience. Like, I have dealt with losses a lot in trading on prediction markets for a while. You know, I've had a day where in a minute I misclicked and I lost $4,000 in a second. You know, from a misclick. You know, how does that feel, right? Like you feel terrible. And what did I do? I literally took a break from trading for the rest of that night, had a drink, relaxed, went back to it the next day, and then sure I felt bad for like, you know, a few hours, but then you reset the next day, you're okay. You know, so having dealt with losses before, like I also have lost like $6,000 on like a big position I took for an AI, you know, trade a while back. So, you know, you start to build up a tolerance after dealing with it for a while, but obviously it's hard in the beginning. What I would just say is like if you're new to this and starting out, I always talk about it. Start with a smaller position size because the smaller your bankroll, the more profitable you can be as a percentage of your bankroll, right? For a lot of top trades, you're going to be very limited by liquidity to get like a lot of money down. But if you're trading with say $1,000 or $100, like the ability to turn $100, I guess turning $100 into $1,000 is 10 times easier than turning $10,000 into $100,000. And turning $100,000 into $1 million is unbelievably harder than turning, you know what I mean? Like as your position size, as your bankroll grows, it becomes harder to compound it as like a percentage of your bankroll because, you know, the opportunities that might be available to you in like illiquid or lower liquidity markets, kind of you get priced out of them to where it's not justified. That's why like people like Domer and like 50 Pence and like, you know, these top traders who are building big position sizes, they are on like another level to me, you know, because like take mentions, right? I'm making a few grand every week on mention markets. Great. These are like not liquid, but they're lower liquidity markets, some of them, compared to like if you have a huge bankroll, you have to get a lot of money down in very high volume, very high liquidity markets, which are going to be the absolute sharpest markets on prediction markets, right? If you're trading the presidential election, your edges are going to be much thinner. And, you know, it's just a sharper market overall because the incentives to price that market correctly are like huge. Because if that's mispriced, it's not that you can make 10 grand, it's you can make 100 grand, 250 grand, you know, like, so there's a lot more incentive for those markets to be like way, way sharper versus if you're new, you have a smaller bankroll, you should typically play in lower liquidity markets because, you know, they're going to be priced way more inefficiently. Nothing is worse than poker variance. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. That's kind of why I quit poker as like an endeavor. I mean, I'd love to get back into it as a hobby, but it is kind of hard to do anything with that has variance like outside of prediction markets now, because I feel like with prediction markets, like the edge you can get is unbelievably higher than I could ever get in poker. I mean, you can get some pretty crazy edges in poker, like if you're playing in a bad game. But, you know, I mean, it'd be cool now that I'm in New York. Like poker, where I come from in California, was really difficult to have a long-term edge because they have a what's called a drop for rake, which is like one of the most you know, high levels of rake, which is basically the casino taking a cut of every hand that any state has. So super difficult to be profitable long-term in poker. All right. We just covered a lot of things. I just rambled. I like rambling about this stuff though. But here's what I want to get into for the rest of the stream. It's going to be probably a shorter stream, being Halloween and Friday night and I'm moving in and everything. But we have some earnings calls coming up. Going back to sometimes liquidity not being as deep on earnings calls, you want to get limit orders out very early. So HIMS is releasing earnings on Monday, which gives us, about 3 days to, start to price this and look at earnings. So I want to kind of research this and get some limit orders up. So we're going to do some live research. Isn't that fun? And I'll talk through my thoughts on all these plays. So rather than anyone, blindly tailing anything, we can just think through the rationale. Oh shoot, I'm getting some, I gotta use my restream. I'm getting some comments from YouTube. Sorry if anyone, hello mate, how are you doing? Says Sujan. I'm doing great. Okay, I have restream open there. Okay, let's look at this earnings call for HIMS. I might not have this in the tool, to be honest. Oh, this is him and hers. Wow, I do have this in the tool. Great. So, only 10K volume so far. So we should be able to actually get some good limit orders up. Everybody's saying the death of earnings calls after yesterday, but I think they're still going to be firing. I know we're still going to be firing, that's for sure. It's funny, that tweet I did about the complex is actually doing pretty well. It's what's the name of the transcript tool? I would love to share it, but the guy who created it, I don't think wants to share it, unfortunately. But I will tell you, there's a new tool, Mention Matrix. I've never used it, but I think it's free. And I would look into that tool. I will talk to the person who made this other tool, see if they'll start sharing it. I mean, the only thing too about the tool I use is it's pretty expensive. So you'd have to be trading with a good amount of money. But I don't know. You probably, Yaza, I think you were showing some pretty big slips on Mamdani, so the tool would probably be worth it for you. All right, let's see HIMS. Holy cow, what the hell is Zava? Wow. This is a very interesting strike. So they acquired this company, Zava, in July. They mentioned it 13 times on the last earnings call, which is why it's priced at 90%. But to me, that could be value. How frequently, how big is Zava? So let's see. Because him and hers, $10 billion market cap company. What was the acquisition? How large was the Zava acquisition? So the acquisition cost of Zava apparently was not public. People are estimating the deal at like 150 to 300 million range on Seeking Alpha. Don't know how accurate that is. The only reason I'm wondering like how large the deal cost was is, you know, companies acquire other companies all the freaking time. So if this wasn't that large of an acquisition, given this is like him and hers is like a $10 billion company, you know, they obviously had reason to talk about it last time, you know, because they closed the acquisition. But now that it's closed, it's like, if this isn't that big of a company, is 90-10 fair valuation, or, you know, fair price for this strike? Right, exactly, Yaza. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Have him and hers, like, do they do a lot of M&A? Have they like acquired other companies? Because the other thing I'm thinking is like, if him and hers acquired another company in the past, can we look at the frequency of, you know, thoughts on Venezuela strike? Is that for a Trump meeting? Oh, you're just talking about the will the U.S. strike Venezuela market, or? I don't know. I mean, they've been teasing it a lot. What's it priced at? The whole Venezuela thing. Because Trump has teased it in a lot of his meetings. Like, I don't think I'm going to be informed enough to, like, give a good actual percentage. I like Maduro staying in power market more. Yeah, I probably lean towards, like, nothing ever happens with these things. To where, like, yeah, Maduro probably stays in power. But to be honest, I mean, not to get political. Yeah, I think it is probably is closer to luck. I wouldn't. It would be kind of cool if Maduro got overthrown. I don't know. I don't personally like Maduro at all, but hopefully I don't have a lot of Maduro supporters I'm going to be angering in my chat. All right, so I'm going to pull up the AI models. We're going to use ChatGPT. This is where I think ChatGPT is helpful, is for research. I don't think Venezuelans do either. Yeah, I followed the Venezuelan election very closely last year. It was kind of crazy to watch. I remember there was a lot of hype for Gonzalez to take over Maduro. In the independent polls, he led by an unbelievable margin, so a lot of people thought it would be too big to rig. But obviously, Maduro will do Maduro things, and they completely rigged it, and he stayed in power again. It was a good learning experience for me because I had not followed like regimes like that very closely. So I thought it was so bizarre, the idea that an individual person could, you know, stay in power. Okay, so here we go. So HIMS has completed 2 acquisitions historically, or, well, obviously more than that, but like 2 in recent times. I think there's one that'll maybe be relevant. They acquired in 2025 Sigmund NJ LLC, marketed as Tribe Labs. So Tribe Labs got acquired in February was when the acquisition was announced. They did not disclose how much they paid. But like, you know, here's a data point, right? How much did they mention like Tribe Labs in, say, their Q1 earnings call? They didn't mention Tribe. What about Sigmund? Huh. So they didn't mention it at all, but that's it must have just been like a smaller acquisition then. They acquired a peptide manufacturer. I don't know. This whole Zava thing seems like it was a pretty big acquisition for him and hers. But it's annoying. They always mention acquisition when they get like different like peptide plants. So it's different than what I'm trying to find in the data. Better lottos elsewhere probably. Yeah, I won't dwell too much on this, but it's just a very interesting one. Because like, you know, pricing it at 90% when it's only come up in one earnings call because they got acquired. All right, last thing I want to look at this. Him and hers revenue for 2020. Like, him and hers revenue was like over $500 million in Q2. And they're saying this new acquisition will be 50 million of incremental revenue for 2025. I mean, granted, the revenue will only count from the date they got acquired in 2025. But you know what I mean? It's like not like that big of an acquisition to talk about it all that much. All right, I'm gonna write down some notes to come back to Zava. I think there potentially could be value, but let's see. Like, we have some other. You picked up Zava at 80. Interesting. Like, we got testosterone. Wow. Testosterone priced at like 90. So I guess they acquire these. They have mediocre guidance, could point to the synergies of the acquisition, even if financially not super material. Yeah, fair. It's just like 10 cents. I don't know. Yeah, I think testosterone's probably a pretty safe yes strike. Don't think I'll bond any, but it seems like they're really getting into these types of testing. What about lab testing? To be honest, lab testing to me is like a mega bond. I don't see how they don't say the lab testing. Definitely gonna put a limit up at that. I mean, I think lab testing should be like 95, 98. Definitely doesn't make sense in anywhere in the 80s. Just based off looking at and where they're moving the company. Canada. Wow, Canada 82 was said. Okay, they're. I think the Zava acquisitions related to Canada, which is why they mentioned it so much last time. Huh. But is 80 fair price for Canada? I don't know. I'll look elsewhere. Vitamin. I mean, I definitely take vitamin at 76 or 75. Probably even. Surprised there's 500 at 80. I mean, looks like it's always coming up in the Q&A. Huh. I'm just going to take those 80-cent shares probably. I mean, I like to do limits, but I think that's pretty whack pricing for that. All right, let's see peptide. You were talking about this one, Gustavo. Wow. Have they done any like more? Because peptide's coming up because they were acquiring all these peptide manufacturing facilities. I kind of lean towards no on peptide. But maybe that's stupid. Yeah, I mean, I don't have conviction on peptide, no. Probably just like taking these strikes at lower prices here. Let's see, FDA. Huh. FDA's priced at 75. You think peptide's the main area they want to expand into? Yeah, it just kind of scares me because last earnings call they only say peptide once. Two before that they mentioned a gazillion times, but the last two earnings calls were around the acquisition, so of like all these peptide facilities. So it doesn't seem like they've had all these new acquisitions of peptide facilities, which is like, I'm definitely not going to take no shares, but I don't know. Probably not going to like market buy yes shares. Maybe there's an angle though. What's no way Mamdani mention? What will Mamdani say during his post-election speech? That's funny. It's crazy how much the market price will move based off of like if Mamdani were to actually start to lose the election. But I'm excited for that when that one goes live. Talk about Priced-in, yeah. All right, so when are they actually saying FDA? Huh. Probably lean towards no FDA. Ackman's hiding from me. I know. People gotta repost that more. That would be, how hilarious would that be if he actually responded? But I was just doing it for the memes. Everyone was ragging on Ackman. Okay, Europe at 66 cents. It's only been mentioned once. Cuomo, yes, his new Herbalife. I know. I don't know. I lean towards no on Europe here. I'll put a bid out. Let's see. Tariff. What's going on, Semper? I assume, Semper, you're rooting for the Blue Jays too. I saw you were part of that comment on that one guy's post for the $1,000. If I win, you heard it here first. If I win the free $1,000 giveaway from that, I will give it to you, Semper. So you have 2 people now in the comments for that, for the Blue Jays. Tariff, pretty. I don't know. Tariff's kind of unpredictable. There's probably value in yes tariff, to be honest, but. You have Jays World Series at 9 cents? Wow. Very jealous. But that's going to be me soon because I have Ole Miss, 50,000 shares at 2 cents. When Ole Miss is in the finals, I'm holding that. Ole Miss is going to make the national championship for college football. And I'll be sitting on it. Man, am I stupid to like really like regulation? No. Dang, there's shares up to 52. I don't know if it's a 50-50 strike, but. T1 futures? Yeah, Foster. All right. You know I was holding AL. I should have bought T1 though. I'm always like, how are you not going to have T1 at Worlds? If T1 wins Worlds, I'll be pretty upset. Man, regulation, no. Am I the only one that thinks this looks like incredible? But is this changing because him and hers is like changing their business model? So much. Yeah, so much experience under pressure. Yeah. T1 is just a different beast at Worlds every year. Like, you can never count out T1. It's kind of disgusting how good they are at Worlds. Game 5, I know. I watched the highlights right when I woke up this morning. I did. It was like one team fight that they messed up that just like threw the game. Then they got Elder and Baron, and I just knew it was over. If you give T1 Elder and Baron, or was it Elder or was it just Soul? Yeah, it was like Soul and Baron they had towards the end. I mean, it's just, I don't want to think about it. AL's a good team. All right, I'm reading about him and her's business model to understand this regulation strike. Like, is him and her is regulation? Should this be priced as a much higher strike for yes, even though they haven't said it a ton historically, because him and hers is like expanding into all these different realms of like health and medicine, to where like they're gonna talk about regulators on a ton of these new offerings. It's kind of where my head's at on like why I'm not just like market buying no shares. And I want to like think about this a little more. But, you know, if not, then no on regulation could be pretty good. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what. As they expand into more clinical and competitive areas, weight loss, chronic care, regulatory margin, and competitive pressures increase. So kind of just like as they're expanding. Yeah. Huh. FDA sent them a warning letter in September. How big of a deal is that, though? Like, is that something that just like always happens to these types of companies? Philips receives FDA. Interesting. All right, I'm going to sit out from this regulation strike. Even though historically from transcripts it seems like no is like pretty good price. I think with all these new offerings, everything going on, maybe it is priced fairly. This does make me like FDA a lot, though. So, yeah, I'm going to throw out some bids for FDA. Not that they're going to even mention this specific like letter, but FDA just, yeah, it's been coming up pretty frequently. And anyone have some free alpha for the baseball mention? I don't, but I gave out my alpha on game 1 after the game. Walk-off was priced at 50 cents before. Now it's 90 cents every game. So it's just like the NFL announcers. I think the issue, Logan, is like when I was thinking about it, when they launched that World Series announcer market, I wanted to dive deep into the historical frequencies and like invest in it. But given it's one World Series, I'm like, what do I get? 5 games out of this? So I didn't bother. But in hindsight, it probably would have been worth it because, you get 5 or 6 games. You can probably profit at least $1,000 on every game with the time you spend just getting the words down. But the liquidity was a little lower from the NFL announcers too. So, yeah, should have invested in it, but I was stupid in game one. I thought it wasn't worth it. Amazon. Oh wow, this transcript tool I'm using is wrong. Is it? Amazon's an interesting strike. It seems like, Gustavo, they always are mentioning Amazon lately because of the new COO they hired. Like, the last 2 earnings, they mention Nader Kabani, the new COO coming from Amazon. So they've snuck it in the last few, but Nader Kabani's been there for a while now, so are they still really going to bring up Amazon? I'm surprised how well priced this strike is, because you would think that people would have yeses at like 70 here. Huh. Yeah, I lean towards no, but it's pretty. Shut down. Yeah, I mean, I will just bond. No shutdown mention. This is a stupid strike. They don't even mention shutdown in the terminology with like the FDA shutting something down, so I just don't see this as a real thing. Yeah, I agree, Yaza. I was kind of surprised. Like I was mostly surprised at Amazon that yes was at like 38, because I was hoping that would be more like a 70-cent yes strike. Is what it is. Well, that's our current thoughts on hims and hers. I'm taking no on shutdown. I mean, I will just bond no on shutdown if I can get in at 82 cents. I probably will, honestly. I've left limit orders up on no shutdown on like all the earnings calls. I mean, some of them you have to be careful. Like I think Amazon, they'd say it outside of the whole government shutdown because they'll talk about, maybe it was Apple. I think it was Apple. They'll talk about like shutting down factories, in which case obviously everybody thinks of the government, but yeah, I mean, yes, lab testing, yes, vitamin. I think there's probably going to be a lot of good bonds in this one. Then I'll pick up some yes FDA, some no Europe. What? How's somebody literally already in at 500? Whatever. But yeah, short stream today. I just want to look at this one earnings call, but I'll do some more streams this weekend. Still getting moved into the new place. We got a lot more earnings calls next week. College football tomorrow. You know, I would run through college football and talk about it, but I'll probably post some college football plays. But guys, don't tail any of my college football plays. I have no edge. But happy Halloween, everyone. Have a great Halloween. Have a great luck on all your upcoming Kalshi plays. Take care, guys.